Before the fire, before the ashes, there was Sodom and Gomorrah, two cities full of life, beauty, and pride. Their towers reached toward the sky. Their homes were strong, their streets filled with sound and color. They were cities people dreamed of. But beneath the shining walls, something dark was growing. Cruelty, injustice, sin, and evil so deep, heaven itself could not stay silent. In the next moments, I'll take you through their rise, their fall, and the terrifying judgment that turned them to dust. Watch closely, because this is not just ancient history. It's a warning written in the earth itself. In the green valley of the Jordan River, where the sun warmed the soft earth and the water moved like silver threads through the land, two cities stood proud, Sodom and Gomorrah. Back then, the land was alive. The soil was rich, the air sweet. Fruit trees stood tall, heavy with figs, pomegranates, and dates. Vines wrapped around wooden poles, their grapes purple and full. Fields stretched far, covered in golden wheat. In the pastures, sheep and cattle grazed peacefully. The people of these cities believed they had everything. They were surrounded by beauty. They were surrounded by power. They had grown strong. Travelers from faraway lands came with camels and carts, bringing spices, perfumes, cloth, and jewelry. Their markets were loud and full, filled with sound, color, and the smell of food cooking over fire. Musicians played, dancers twirled, the people laughed. Sodom especially became known across the region. Its music was famous. Its streets were alive at night with singing and celebration. Artists painted. Potters shaped beautiful bowls and vases. Goldsmiths made fine jewelry. Wealth flowed through the city like a river, and with it came pride. The people said, "We are rich, we are powerful, we do not need anyone, not even God." They forgot where their blessings had come from, and slowly their hearts began to harden. As wealth grew, so did selfishness. The poor were pushed aside. The hungry were ignored. Travelers, those who came with nothing, were mocked, even beaten. A man asking for food might be laughed at. A woman begging for help could be spit on. The leaders sat at the city gates in fine clothes. They held scrolls and spoke with strong voices, but they helped only those who gave them gifts. The widow, forgotten, the orphan, left alone. Justice had a price, and only the rich could pay it. What once was beautiful became twisted. In Sodom, relationships no longer reflected love. They were used for control, for power, for pleasure. People treated others like objects. Wild parties filled the nights. The strong used the weak. No one spoke out. Fear ruled in silence. And yet, there was one man who stayed, Lot. He had come to Sodom many years before. The land had looked good, green, full of promise. He was Abraham's nephew. He had wanted a better life, and for a while he had found it. Lot gained respect. He sat with the elders. He had wealth, a home, and a family. But over time, he saw what the city had become. He saw how people changed, or maybe how they had always been. He felt trapped. Maybe he stayed because he hoped things would get better. Maybe he stayed because he was afraid to leave. But the cries began from dark streets where the innocent were hurt, from hidden places where the broken wept in silence, from fields where bodies were buried in secret. The cries rose. They rose past the roofs, past the mountains, into the heavens, and God heard, and God would not stay silent. Far from the noise of Sodom, in a quiet place called Mamre, Abraham sat by his tent. The sun was hot, the wind was dry, the land stretched out before him. He was old now. He had waited years for God's promise. that he would have a son, that he would become the father of nations. He sat, thinking of all that had passed. Then suddenly he looked up and saw 3 men walking toward him. They looked like travelers, but something about them felt holy. Abraham ran to them, bowed low, and said, "My lords, please stay. Rest in the shade. Let me bring water for your feet and food for your journey." They agreed. Abraham rushed to Sarah. "Quick, take flour and bake fresh bread." He chose a tender calf and gave it to a servant to prepare. He brought curds, milk, meat, and bread to his guests. Then they rose and looked towards Sodom. Abraham walked with them, and then the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? The people of Sodom are wicked. Their cries have reached me. I will go down and see if it is truly as bad as it sounds." Abraham's heart began to pound. Lot was there, Lot, his family, his blood. So Abraham pleaded, "Will you destroy the good along with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city?" God answered, "If I find 50, I will not destroy it." Abraham asked again, 45, 40, 30, 20. "Please, Lord, don't be angry," Abraham said. "Let me ask just once more. What if there are 10? And God said, "If there are 10 righteous people, I will not destroy the city." Then the Lord left, and Abraham stood alone watching the road, praying that 10 could be found. Night fell over Sodom. The city's lights flickered on one by one, music rose through the streets, and laughter filled the air. But beneath the sounds was a darkness, a wild, cruel life hidden behind bright windows and colorful celebrations. At the city gate, 2 men arrived quietly, dressed as travelers. But Lot knew at once they were no ordinary visitors. Rising quickly, he bowed and invited them to his home. They hesitated, saying they would stay in the town square. But Lot's fear grew. He knew the dangers waiting outside after dark. So he pleaded until they agreed to come inside, offering bread baked without yeast and food prepared with care. No sooner had they eaten than a crowd gathered outside, voices shouting and footsteps pounding on the ground. Men, young and old, surrounded the house, demanding, "Where are the men who came to you? Bring them out so we can have our way with them." Lot stepped outside, shutting the door behind him. "Brothers, please don't do such a wicked thing," he begged. But they jeered, "Get out of our way. You're a foreigner acting like a judge. We'll treat you worse than them." They pushed forward, their intentions dark and violent. Suddenly the door opened. The visitors, angels sent by God, pulled Lot inside, slammed the door shut, and struck the mob with blindness. The men stumbled helplessly, unable to find the door. Turning to Lot, the angel said, "Is there anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons, daughters? Get them out. We are sent to destroy this city. The cries have reached the Lord." Lot ran to his sons-in-law, warning them to leave, but they laughed, thinking he was joking. The sky began to lighten as dawn approached, but inside Lot's heart was heavy with fear.
"We must leave now. There is no time."
His family was unwilling to leave, and time was running out. The angels pressed urgently, "Take your wife and daughters and leave now. Don't delay." Lot hesitated. The life he knew, the wealth, the home, the streets filled with memories, was behind him. But the angels' hands were strong, pulling them out into the cold morning air. "Run for your lives," one angel warned. "Don't look back. Don't stop in the valley. Flee to the mountains, or you will be destroyed." But the mountains seemed too far, too high. Fear clutched Lot's throat as he begged, "Please, I cannot reach the hills in time. Let me escape to that small town over there. It is close and small. Let me live there." The angel nodded. Very well, I will not destroy that town, but hurry, I can do nothing until you arrive. That town was called Zoar. As they hurried towards Zoar, the sky behind them turned from pink to red to blazing fire. From the heavens, burning sulfur rained down like rivers of fire. Sodom and Gomorrah, cities once full of music and light, were swallowed by flames. The screams rose and mingled with the crackling fire as homes collapsed and towers crumbled. And then, silence, except for the sound of wind and the crunch of salt. Lot's wife turned her head. Maybe it was love or grief or regret. But in that moment, she was frozen. Her body hardened into a pillar of salt, standing forever as a silent warning. Lot did not look back. He and his daughters reached Zoar, but stayed only briefly. The people there were afraid, and the air still smelled of fire and sulfur. So they fled to the hills, hiding in a dark cave where no one could find them. The cave was cold and dark, a shadow of the life Lot and his daughters once knew. Outside, the world seemed silent, empty, as if everything had ended with the fire. Days passed. The wind whispered over the rocky hills. No travelers came, no shepherds called their flocks, no voices echoed through the valleys. Lot's daughters grew restless and fearful. They wept for their mother, lost to the pillar of salt. They wept for their family, scattered and broken. One night the older daughter spoke in a trembling voice. "There is no man left, no one to marry, no one to give us children. Our family line will end here, in this cave." The younger listened, her eyes wide in the dark. "We cannot let our family die out," the older said. "Tonight, we will give father wine. When he sleeps, I will lie with him. Tomorrow, you will do the same." It was a desperate plan born of fear. They gave Lot wine. When he fell asleep, the older daughter did as she said. The next night, the younger daughter followed. Lot was unaware. In time, both daughters became pregnant. The older daughter bore a son named Moab, meaning from father. He became the ancestor of the Moabites. The younger daughter bore a son named Ben-Ami, meaning son of my people. He became the father of the Ammonites. From destruction, new nations arose. From sin, new life. The lands east of the Dead Sea grew filled with these peoples. Though they often clashed with Israel, their origins were a reminder. Even in the darkest places, life finds a way. And God's plan continued. Far from the burning cities, Abraham stood on a quiet hill, watching the valley where smoke still rose in thick, dark clouds. His heart was heavy with grief and worry. He did not know yet if Lot had escaped the destruction. The promise of God echoed in his mind, the promise of a son, a future, a legacy. He remembered the conversation with the Lord, the pleading for mercy for the righteous, the hope that at least 10 good people could be found. But there were none. The cities were gone. Ashes and silence filled the place where life once thrived. Abraham turned away slowly, walking back to his tent in the quiet wilderness. Yet even in sorrow, hope remained. For soon Sarah, his wife, would bear a son as God promised, a child named Isaac, whose name meant laughter. From the ashes of despair, joy would rise. Where destruction fell, new life would bloom. Where cities were destroyed, a people of promise would be born. The story of fire and loss was not the end. It was a beginning. Years passed, centuries even. New cities rose where old ones had fallen. Empires conquered and were conquered. Yet the tale of Sodom and Gomorrah never faded from memory. Parents told the story to their children at night. Mothers whispered it to daughters. Fathers warned sons. Prophets shouted it from town squares and temple steps. Remember Sodom and Gomorrah, they urged. Remember the pride that blinded them. Remember the cries of the weak that went unheard. The land around the Dead Sea remained changed. Where once green fields and vineyards flourished, now stretched a barren wasteland. The waters shimmered dark and salty, lifeless and still. Travelers spoke of strange pillars of salt standing near the shore, silent monuments to the past. Some swore the air still carried the faint scent of sulfur, a reminder of the fire that fell from heaven. And the story became more than a memory. It became a warning, a lesson carved deep into the earth itself. Even now, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah echoes through time, not as mere ancient ruins, but as a stern warning to all. It warns what happens when justice is forgotten, when kindness fades away, when the powerful ignore the weak, when pride blinds hearts and greed consumes souls. Sodom's sin was not just one terrible act, it was many. Pride, cruelty, selfishness, arrogance, and cruelty without mercy. They built great towers, but no temples. They made gold, but no grace. They filled the streets with laughter, but no love. And when the cries of the innocent rose from the city's depths, God did not stay silent. The answer came not in words, but in fire, the fire that consumed all. It was a warning to every city, every people, every heart, that no matter how strong or rich or powerful you become, without justice and mercy, everything can fall in a single night. From the ashes of Sodom and Gomorrah, many questions rise with the smoke. Why did Lot stay so long in a city doomed? Why did the people ignore the warnings? Why did the angels come as men, walking quietly among them? And why did Abraham plead so passionately for mercy? But the greatest question is not about them, it is about us. What kind of city are we building today? Are we like Sodom, full of pride, wealth, and distraction? Do we hear the cries of those who suffer? Do we welcome the stranger in need? Do we fight for justice or turn a blind eye? Sodom and Gomorrah were not destroyed because they were rich or vibrant. They fell because they lost their hearts, because they forgot mercy, because they laughed at love and justice, because they believed themselves above judgment. But no one is above judgment. Not then, not now. So remember this. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is not just ancient history. It is a message for today, for every person who holds power and how they use it, for every city that chooses greed over grace, for every heart that pushes God away. Let it be a warning, let it shake you, because even though the fire has fallen, even though the smoke has cleared, the warning still stands. What people build means nothing if they lose justice and kindness. What seems strong can fall in a single night when the cries of the weak are ignored. Sodom and Gomorrah are gone, but their story will never be forgotten. It is written in the land, and it is written in us.